Well, hello and welcome back to Supposedly Fun. My name is Greg. I am here today to do my typical thing, which is to film a Friday Reads video on a Friday and then post it on a Saturday. And if you follow along, you know the drill. I don't think I need to keep explaining too much, but that's what I do. That's what I'm here for today. My reading life is largely still a bit of a mess, but we'll get to the reading portion in a little bit. Another thing that's been a little bit of a mess is that with all the stress with the election and the pandemic and everything, again, if you follow along, you know all the details. With that, basically my reading became a bit of a struggle leading up to the election, certainly the week of the election where I got about no reading done. And I'm still kind of fighting my way back. And I've managed to keep up a little bit, but I think things have been progressing very slowly. And it is what it is. Anyway, so the other thing that it has suffered along with this is my watching booktube videos. I had went through a 2-week period where I just was not watching any videos at all, and the week or maybe even 2 weeks before that, I was barely watching. I only watched a handful. So this week I've started working my way back in. But because I am a little bit behind, not a little bit. I've started with channels that I'm really familiar with, so I don't have a channel to recommend for this month because I haven't done any discoveries. So here's what I would ask of you. If you have a channel you would like to recommend, please leave it in the comment section down below, because as I work my way back into BookTube, I want to try to discover more channels again. And I think this might be a fun way of doing that. So if you have a channel you would like to shout out and think I should give a try, please leave it in the comment section down below and let me know. And I'll, in the month of December, I'm gonna start really trying to get back in the habit of including BookTube. And just in general, be a little bit better about my balancing reading, work, news, booktube, audiobooks, and all of the things that I usually am very able to do, but have been struggling with everything going on in the world, and you know all the stuff going on. But anyway, so I would be very interested in hearing what channels you would like to recommend. I try to recommend a channel that has under 1,000 subscribers, so just bear that in mind. And maybe it's a brand new channel, maybe it's a channel that has existed and you just want to see get a little bit more love. Whatever you want to do, just leave it in the comment section down below. Obviously, the big book news this week has been that the Booker Prize, the National Book Award was announced first, followed by the Booker Prize. Winner of the National Book Award was Interior Chinatown by Charles Yu. Interesting how the feedback I was getting before the National Book Award was that this book was okay, but not great. And the feedback I've gotten since is that, oh, it's really cool that they recognize this book because it's really good. So it's funny how the conversation can change very quickly on a book, and I am very curious to check that book out now, whereas before I was kind of a little bit hesitant. And before I forget, the other big book news, spoiler alert for my book haul for the month, this arrived today. It's Barack Obama's new book, A Promised Land, and I had ordered this from Montana Book Company, which is actually not even in my town, and because it's not in my town, it's in Helena, Montana, and I live in Missoula, which is an hour and a half away, roughly. So they shipped it to me and it arrived today. The book was released on Tuesday. I'm really looking forward to this. It's a really chunky book, and I knew that it was, but I didn't realize it was over 700 pages. But I'm really looking forward to it. Got that handsome little back cover, and I'll talk more about it in my book haul. But that is the other big book news that happened this week, and I don't want to forget it. So there you go. And the other big book news was, of course, the Booker Prize. And it feels like a lot of people were excited about Interior Chinatown winning the National Book Award, and there's been a lot more grumbling, I guess would be the word, about Shuggie Bain winning the Booker Prize. Personally, if you saw my reaction video, if you've been watching at all, you know I have really been enjoying Shuggie Bain, so I'm ecstatic. But a lot of, by the way, if you see sparkling, so we have a wind chime on the tree outside that has these little mirror things on it, and the sun is perfectly hitting it right now, so I can't control the disco ball effect. I'm sorry. But anyways, I'm really excited about Shuggie Bain's win. And one thing it's difficult to talk about what the sort of backlash against Shuggie Bain is for me, because a lot of it has to do with the fact that Douglas Stuart, who wrote Shuggie Bain, is a white man. I'm a white man. I don't feel like I am qualified as a white man to discuss whether or not a white man should, whether or not a story written by a white man about a white man based on his life as a white man is something that should be necessarily put forward. I believe in diversity and inclusion. I absolutely do. I think part of the problem in the past is that the only people who had access to things like the Booker Prize or regular access to the Booker Prize or to the world of publishing have been white people, and especially white men. There are a lot of women who work in publishing, so don't sleep on that. But in general, yeah, white male stories have definitely been the dominant force of literature for a long time. There's no denying that. But I do think it's a little bit unfair to say that the Booker Prize took a safe route by awarding the prize to the white man who was in the lineup. And again, I feel weird talking about it because I am a white man, and it's not like I'm trying to say all lives matter or anything like that. No, Black lives matter in particular because they are the ones that are mistreated. And here's the thing: it's Shuggie Bain is an LGBTQ book. Douglas Stuart is gay, and Shuggie Bain is gay, and he's over the course of the book he's sort of struggling with his identity. He never identifies himself as gay. We never get to, it's not a coming out story. We don't get to him coming out. He mostly just struggles with his identity and the part of it that we know, and with the attention that he gets from other people who can ID him based on, stereotypes about his kind of a little bit flamboyant personality, the way he talks and things like that, and that he doesn't really enjoy stereotypically male things. So that is, and it's not that LGBTQ stories have never won a Booker before. I mean, right off the top of my head, I can tell you The Line of Beauty by Alan Hollinghurst is a gay book that won the Booker Prize. Alan Hollinghurst is a gay man who won the Booker Prize. And I'm not going to try to say that because it features a gay character and that only one other Scottish book has won a Booker Prize that this is a triumph of diversity, because that's pretty low on the scale of diversity, I would say. All I'm going to say about it is that Alan Cumming, who is Scottish, was quoted in a New York Times article as saying that he was struck by how Stuart drew on the Scottish literary canon, but expanded on it by writing from the point of view of a gay boy and his wayward mother. So I think the argument that Shuggie Bain is like a traditional book, yes, it is a traditional book. It's traditionally structured, but to say that it doesn't innovate at all, I don't know if that's really fair. Admittedly, the scale of innovation is low, but I think it does the story really well. And this is a conversation that a lot of people have been having, because I love to talk about book awards, and I love the Oscars. I don't talk about the Oscars on my channel other than the fact that I love them too much, but I feel like one thing that is very much on people's minds these days is the idea of diversity and access. And I think it's ultimately a question of what is important. And to me, I think the most important thing is that diverse authors, diverse judges are given access to awards like the Booker Prize. And I think it's significant to point out that the chair of the jury this year was Margaret Busby, who is born in Ghana and lives in the UK, and was the youngest and first female Black book publisher. She co-founded the publishing house Allison and Busby in the 1960s. And again, this is part of why this is a tricky conversation. I don't want to say that because the chair of the jury was a Black woman that we've met our diversity quotient. No, we have more work to do. I want to be clear about that. But I feel like we're making progress in ways that we haven't in the past. And if Shuggie Bain was a bad book, like I think the part of the problem with, and a lot of people point to what happened last year as an example of the Booker Prize having a bit of a problem with diversity and a bit of a problem recognizing or being inclined to recognize, I've heard it say, more commercial books and things like that. The problem with the Testaments was that the jury last year clearly wanted to advance the Testaments no matter what. Like before the book was published, it was on the long list before, and they they just advanced it throughout. And even when it won, members of the jury said that they wanted to award Margaret Atwood's legacy as a writer, which is not what the Booker is supposed to do. And the quality of the book itself seems to have a bit of a footnote, because there are people who liked it but had issues with it. But it also largely seems to be a Marmite book. You either love it or you hate it. The majority of people seem to not enjoy it very much. Personally, I didn't read it because I like the way The Handmaid's Tale ended. I don't feel like it needed a sequel. So that's the big issue from last year. And even last year, I guess you could say at least it was a tie. Like, they didn't just give it to The Testaments. They also gave it to Bernardine Evaristo and Girl, Woman, Other. And that at least was like a glimmer of hope, because Girl, Woman, Other is a book that absolutely deserved to win the Booker Prize. And I think they have very smartly used Bernardine Evaristo and kind of almost made her a spokesperson for the prize over the last year. I hope they continue to do that in the future, because she's an excellent ambassador on behalf of the Booker, I think. But I think it's unfair to say that Shuggie Bain winning is like The Testaments winning, because there are people who have a problem with Shuggie Bain, but the majority of people seem to genuinely like it. I happen to be one of them. So it's tricky. And it's particularly tricky for me because I've only read half of one of the other books, and that's Burnt Sugar. And if Burnt Sugar had won, I would be very happy with the outcome, because I would be championing Shuggie Bain in my own time, and Burnt Sugar would still be out there, and I think it would have been a worthy winner. Personally, I think the shortlist in total was very well chosen. So, but it's interesting because I feel like, and I was accused of doing this on Twitter just recently, because I posted a bit of a reaction to that. But I think people are assuming that because Shuggie Bain has been selling well and has been in conversation a lot now, that they've been calling it commercial, and what they mean is that it's selling well. So conflating like a commercial object with with something that is commercially successful. Shuggie Bain was published in February, and I'm willing to bet most people had not heard of it. I mean, I know I hadn't heard of it until the long list for the Booker Prize was announced at the end of July. And it's just that since then, a lot of people seem to react and say, oh, Shuggie Bain, I want to read that. But when they saw the long list, I did that. And, I don't want to use my comment section as... I don't think it would give you an accurate read on the world. It's my own little bubble and people responding to me responding to the long list. But it does seem like online a lot of people just saw it on the list and said, that sounds really interesting. I want to read that. I think a lot of people discovered it at that point. And if the book is successful now, it seems to be that word of mouth has really built for it. Obviously, the fact that it was a finalist for the National Book Award as well helps, but where am I going with this? I don't really know. And again, it feels problematic that as a white man, I'm the one who's trying to have this conversation. But I think I think a lot of people are assuming that because Shuggie Bain is successful now and is selling well now, that's the story it's always had, when no. Now, I pulled up a New York Times article that was published at the end of October, and I remembered this from when I read it, so I pulled it up for reference so I could get the exact quote. It's about Douglas Stuart and how he was a finalist for both the Booker Prize and the National Book Award. And they mention, quote, when the book came out in February, it had a warm but rather quiet reception. Now it is being celebrated as one of the year's most accomplished debuts. So it just feels like people are creating a narrative now where Shuggie Bain has always been successful, and that's not necessarily the case at all. So anyway, I feel like it is a complicated conversation. I feel like it's a conversation we really need to have and should be having, because I want to see diversity and inclusion continue at the Booker Prize. I think it's definitely something that we still need to do better on. And there's also a conversation that happens repeatedly whenever I talk about any book award, really. But people point out, shouldn't it just be about the quality of the work? And I don't think you can separate politics from anything, really. Politics is our lives. And I think that is something that I see in my daily life as a gay man living in America. And I think anybody who really pays attention would see politics is your life. You cannot separate it from anything. That's what I think. And yes, you can apply that to the Booker Prize a lot of different ways, especially with the shortlist that we had this year, because there were a lot of varying voices and opinions and stories that were told. And that's a good thing. At the end of the day, I think a beautiful and tender book won. It's something that is a story that is going to stay with me for a long time. And yes, I'm a white gay man, so I am literally pieces of me are in the character in the book. And I talked a little bit more about that in my Booker Prize reaction, which I will link down below. And again, going back to Margaret Busby, in the New York Times article about the Booker Prize, she mentions in a video news conference, Margaret Busby, this year's chair of judges, said the vote was unanimous and quick, and she noted that she believed the book is destined to become a classic. So whether you love Shuggie Bain or not, clearly the jury chose what they thought was the best book. You don't have to agree with them. I frequently disagree with award winners. God, talk to me about the Oscars someday. I could go off. Let's talk about the year Green Book won Best Picture. What a mess. Total mess. But even talking about the Oscars, I feel like the Academy has had a huge diversity and inclusion initiative. They have been welcoming in much larger amounts of new members than usual over the past few years. And the majority of the new members they are welcoming in are women and people from more diverse backgrounds, because they want to move away from that. That's a process, and it will take time. But you can see evidence that it is already beginning to work. Obviously not in Green Book's win, but in the fact that Parasite won Best Picture last year, and even in Moonlight's victory over La La Land. What was that, 2017? So I feel like it's a process, and over time we need to hold institutions like the Academy or the Booker Prize accountable for continuing to make progress. You don't want to get complacent and think we're there, because when you get complacent and think we're there, you get a movie like Crash that becomes a Best Picture winner. And talk to me about that sometime. I have opinions. At the end of the day, I think a really good book won, and that's something that we should celebrate. So we'll leave it at that. If you have thoughts on any of this, like I said, I feel weird being the white man having this conversation, but hopefully and I have no script for this, so I'm just really talking. Maybe if something I've said is problematic, leave a comment down below. Hopefully you understand I'm talking with the best of intentions, and with the belief that I think diversity and inclusion is important. At the end of the day, I really love Shuggie Bain, and I'm happy that it won. So have a conversation, go forth, have at it in the comment section down below. Let's move into the actual Friday Reads portion of this, where we talk about reading. The only book I've made progress on so far is Shuggie Bain, which I don't have the dust jacket right now, so I'm not going to really hold it up too much, but that's the only one I've made progress on. I had 100 pages left when I did my Booker reaction yesterday. I only have 50 pages left now. Home stretch. I'm really looking forward to the ending, because the only thing left is the ending to determine exactly where it's going to sit with me, but I've loved the book so far. So we will see what happens with that. Love. So I did read one more chapter actually in this. So I did make progress in Love earlier in the week, and then I'm going to finish Shuggie Bain tonight, hopefully, fingers crossed. And then Love will be the next book that I'm really focusing on. This is my buddy Britta Bowler. And I think the next chapter that I read, I mentioned in my Friday Reads last week that it seemed odd that the first chapter, it had a section there was an introduction that was kind of like, here's all the exposition, and then the first chapter actually started moving the plot forward. And then the next chapter felt a little bit more, so it felt like it was a chapter of exposition, and then an actual chapter, and then another chapter that was packed with exposition. But I think as we get that out of the way, the story is going to get really interesting for me. So I'm looking forward to getting further along in that. I did not get any progress in The Left Hand of Darkness, which was my audio. I'm going to be focusing on that this week. So what have you been reading? What have you been loving? Let me know in the comment section down below. As always, I really appreciate your time. I will be back. Until next time, happy reading.